Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Second Act Actors. I'm your host, Dr. Janet McMorty, and I'm still a medical doctor simultaneously trying to pursue a career in acting. Few housekeeping things before we get to my fabulous guest this week. First one is, if you have not already found us on Instagram, come on over and find our beautiful online community. We are at Second Act Actors. I post a lot of bonus clips from each episode on there. Plus, that's where you can see me sometimes go live with either a guest or with another friend who has an acting podcast, or, you know, it's just some surprises that happen every so often on our little Instagram page. It is now Bitcoin and hacker free. Thank goodness. Second piece of housekeeping. If you feel inclined to support the show financially, it is very much appreciated. You can head on over to my website, www.secondactactors.com, and there's a link there to support the show. It is very much appreciated, but I also fully understand the world is literally on fire. So another way you can support this show if you're enjoying these episodes is to like, follow, subscribe, add a comment. That feeds the algorithm monster, as I'm calling it. That shows up on things like Spotify and Apple Podcasts when you do that, and that's what helps people find this podcast. So anything that you do to support the show is much appreciated. Now, my guest this week is Victor Dobro. Victor is my first cop. Police officer turned actor. But oh my goodness, is he not the last. I have so many former police officers turned actors coming up on this show, but Victor is the first. Victor has a 20-plus year history in law enforcement, including S.W.A.T and police education. He has done a lot of fascinating work in the background, plus, coordination for things like stunts or, police expertise on film sets. So we have that in common. I've done a lot of the medical consulting that some shows require. But, those of us who've had jobs before, especially physically active jobs like his tactical work, people always say, you can go into, acting, but what about stunts? And he's done a couple things in the stunt world, but what really, really appeals to him now is acting. Please enjoy this fabulous episode with the incredibly talented, badass Victor Dobro. You got enough life, you can tell a whole new story.
It's crazy.
Oh, well, anyways, yeah. Okay, take number 12 or whatever. Tell me your story. How did you get into acting?
Well, I'm a police officer, still currently a police officer for 24 years. I was a cop in Albuquerque, New Mexico for about 8 years. But during that time, they filmed a lot of, and they still do film a lot of movies in Albuquerque and Santa Fe. And I had a few friends that were on the best show ever, Breaking Bad, and Better Call Saul, and there were some others. And I was always jealous and of like how they got into it, but they needed them as background, but also as like police consultants on set. And that's why Breaking Bad was so realistic. So I had that like kind of exposure to that and some other films, just like working on set or with friends, but never, on camera. So fast forward, I come back, I moved to Maryland, and I have a friend that met me through these fan clubs for Friday 13th and like being a fan of like the horror genre from the 80s. And we would go to these conventions. I was going to comic book conventions. I was getting autographs on comic books. I was getting my pictures taken with, these actors. And then I was going to horror conventions just with the horror actors and stuff. And so I had a friend that wanted to do a Friday 13th fan film, and he asked me if I would help him, just volunteer. I said, yeah, sure. I thought it was really, really cool. And my role kind of changed. I was going to be like a stunt coordinator, even though I had no experience, or like, like SWAT team advisor, which I've had lots of experience. And it ended up, my roles changed a few different times and ended up just being really a cameo as a lab technician crossing the camera, which is fine because it was my first time ever on camera. So that that was really cool experience. I come home and then my wife found an advertisement for Walking Dead World Beyond. They were looking for CRM. They were looking for police or soldiers, like former or current police officers or soldiers to play like these CRM soldiers for Walking Dead. I said, oh, sure. So I put in for it. And then mind you, I had like no resume, no headshots, nothing. And so I just sent them a few different pictures of me, like in my uniform. And I was what they're looking for, really. So I was one of like just only 12 maybe soldiers that we rotated with, or, there were more for season 1 combined with season 2. And then I was surprised, like I just became like a featured recurring role, and I was getting like these SAG vouchers for every day of filming. And, I was handpicked by different directors for different scenes. And I was like really starting to feel confident, like, hey, this is pretty easy. And I realized I wasn't even being asked to do much other than be available and look like you know what you're doing. And so like that just led one into another. So I really, working with different background actors, they're all great people. I love them as my friends. But, some of them have jobs where they can't really pursue acting, and some, they want to, but they don't really know how, or they don't have, different people have different priorities, right, in life. So I looked at it like, this is pretty cool. I'm going to just really concentrate on doing what I have to do. But I had no agent, and, background actors, typically they're hanging out and the discussion revolves around, are you union? Are you union? Or do you want to become SAG? Or have you ever been on camera before? And, so those are all normal conversations, but like, I had no agent. I had no acting classes, and people are classically trained in everything. So I'm thinking to myself, like, I have to play catch up, and some people say that could be a bad thing in the industry of trying to rush your career. And I just look at it as like being eager and like, I don't see it necessarily as being a bad thing, but just trying to like play catch up. Like, oh my gosh, I need professional headshots. I need to work on my resume. I need to sign up for an acting school. And so like, that's what I did. And I was just, before I got on with you, I spoke to a prospective acting coach for like 50 minutes on Zoom. And it was just a getting to know you, getting to know me, see if this is a right fit. And that's what I'm looking at doing. So like every day I do something like update my resume, update IMDb, and just, making connections, and just like every other actor. But that's kind of how I got into it. It's just like a little bit of background. And then all of a sudden I just said, hey, and I'm kind of like that with hobbies anyways. And I don't know many people like that. And I don't know if that just means I'm ADHD or what, but like I learned how to drag race my Hellcat off of YouTube. And then like one day I said, hey, I want to collect comic books. And then like, hey, I want to collect comic books and get autographs so I would go find out what celebrities were going to a convention. And then I would see if they were in any franchises that there was a comic book made after, so then I would, I would go get, Daniel LaRusso, Ralph Macchio, and I would ask him to like autograph like Karate Kid comic book because he's the Karate Kid, or just stuff like that, or like I'd meet some of the Star Wars actors and I would have them autograph Star Wars comic books. So that was just kind of my thing, and then all of a sudden now I'm working with them, like I was getting autographs from John Bernthal, and then now here I am like working with them. And so like and I told him that story, and that's really cool. Like I'm a fan one day, and then the next day I'm a coworker. So that's kind of how I still fanboy over some of these actors, but that's cool. Like that's a long-winded, I guess, way of telling you how I got into it.
Yeah. Were you at all performative growing up? Like, do you think, was there something that fed into the performative aspect of acting? Because it's pretty different, I think, than being a cop. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, there are some similarities, some differences. But, I can't tell you, as growing up, I always wanted to be a police officer. I can't say that. And I can't say growing up, I always wanted to be an actor. And I think every single human being has like some artistic side to them. But some are like a lot, I couldn't be a painter unless I, trained that way. But no, I never saw myself in that like specific role, but I just kind of, I love, and I'm a fan of movies and film, and like, not necessarily like how a director would look at things, like a director producer, but more of like story and writing and character development, to the point where if you're like me and you watch a lot of shows and you know and you have some life experiences, you can kind of see where like the shows are going, or like what's the plot, or who you think who the killer is. And I don't know what you watch movies and shows, and some people have no clue what's going on, and you're like, can't you, it's obvious this is the person who did it, or they're obviously going to fall in love by the last episode or something like that. But so like being a fan of like how stuff is written and produced was really cool. And then like just a little bit of exposure behind the camera. Because there's things I never knew, like how many angles you have to take for one scene. I didn't know that. So I didn't know like that I thought when you or me are talking, there's one camera and it looks at me and then it flips to you and then it flips to me. I had no idea.
Yeah.
You have to do these multiple takes. So like, and then I was naive and I thought that like, there's no way I could be an actor because there's no way I could learn all the dialogue that I would have to have, for Titanic. The movie, like how could they memorize all that? That's impossible. So I thought like these actors were superhuman intelligent, right? Or then I realized really it's only one scene a day usually that you have to memorize, and it could be short, could be long, but I tell you what, I impressed myself because I'm still like trying to figure out, can I do this? Do I want to do this? And I'm still saying yes and yes. But I've found if you don't memorize your lines, it doesn't matter if you have 4 lines. If you don't memorize your lines, you're going to have a hard time, at least me. But I also have tested myself, and I said, I found that I can memorize 80 lines if I've given 3 or 4 weeks. And if you've got the lines down, I feel a lot more comfortable. I can make my choices, and it's so much easier and better. So when people ask, like, is it hard to memorize your lines? Isn't that hard? And other people say, oh, that's the easy part. The hard part is the acting. And I tell people, like, I don't even look at it like that, hard or easy. It's a must. You have to, and it's kind of old school, I guess, but you have to learn your lines, memorize them, be off book, they call it. Once you have them memorized, then you're free to be normal, to be yourself, to everything from your how fast you're speaking to how slow and your natural pauses. Like that comes when you have your stuff memorized. Not when you're thinking about what my next line is and my next cue, is. But anyway, so like I found that I could do it, and I found like pleasure in it, and it's fun, and it's the second act. It's what I want to, what I'm into now, and it's what I want to progress to doing solely instead of police work and acting. Just drift away from police work and go more heavily into acting.
Yeah. So, I mean, there is a role for a police consultant, right? Like on film set, just like there's like, I've done medical consulting on film sets.
Yeah.
But so what is it about, like, you could just keep doing that, right?
Yes,
but
what
is it about acting that's pulling you so much?
Well, I'll just tell you honestly, like there's really 3 branches I was looking at doing is stunt work, acting, and behind the camera consulting. The problem is what I'm finding the easiest is for me to be an actor, because the stunt is a little bit different because of my age and lack of specific stunt training. Now I have training with like, self-defense, weapons and grappling and all that, but stunt work is different because we're not like, I can't really fight with an actor. I have to pretend to fight with an actor. So I know how to like take an actor down, but as far as the training of how to take an actor down safely the correct way, it's like a totally different skill. So like I have done just very limited training in stunt work. So that's really not a path I'm on anymore. And so like I just kind of had to realize that. As far as consulting, it's really my main goal, or it was my main goal. But I find that is a very small niche of the industry. It's not well paid, and you have to be well known before you're paid. So the market I'm in, the mid-Atlantic market of the United States, nobody's searching out tactical consultants or police consultants or military consultants. If they are, they're not going to pay them that much at all. So that's the problem, is that many people don't realize. Just like if you saw maybe like a low budget project involving some medical, even just terms, or a hospital visit, or a consultation, and you're like, none of that's correct. But they may not know, or they may not care, or they may still be able to get the story across, like, oh, they're going into so like it's hard to be able to tell people like, no, you really need a police consultant. If you have any police or any jargon or any legal terms and definitions like that you're trying to convey to help with the suspended disbelief, you should have a consultant. But I've only done it a few times and it's all been pro bono. And now really what I'm doing is selling that as a package of, if you hire me as an actor, as a cop, by the way, you also get 24 years of experience. I do script analysis, script review, free consultation. So it's kind of like you get that. And there's one producer and a director on a project that I'm still currently doing who's utilized those resources. So like I'm still doing it, but it's very hard. Like I spoke with Michael Kudlitz, Sergeant Abraham from Walking Dead, and he was on Southland and he directed one episode of Walking Dead World Beyond season 1. But he's one of the first, there's only a few actors that have told me that, like when they realized I was a cop and they said, hey, you ever think about getting into consulting? And I was like, man, that'd be awesome. But like, for me, I think that entails I have to move to LA right now to try starting to do that. But I'm friends with a very popular military consultant, and I would say like he's really second generation because he came in under somebody else. But he's a great guy. He's a former Navy SEAL. His name is Kevin Kent, and he's done so many projects. And what I found is, unfortunately, like he didn't even get credited with Walking Dead World Beyond. Like I had to add his credit to IMDb so he could get that recognition. But I'm like, you can do all this work as background, but even as a consultant and not get any credit. And that, he still got paid, obviously. But I tell him often, like, you've got the job that I want. And then when I'm on the HBO show, We Own the City, I told the Andre Severino detective, who's a consultant who was full time for them he's still a Baltimore detective. And I looked at him right before we started the scene. I said, hey, bro, you actually have the job that I want. So here I am about to film on screen, but I'm telling the off camera consultant that he's got the job that I want. So that's kind of tells you my mindset of like, I want to be a consultant, but I'm finding it's a lot easier for me to get these acting roles and even like modeling and commercial auditions. And I never pinned myself as a model or like a commercial actor, but like I'm taking the work and doing the auditions for experience.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting. I mean, you're just kind of coming back to your thought about memorizing lines and how you need to have it memorized. And I'm the same. And I wonder again, because if our brains are similar, kind of a very analytical, stepwise approach to things, I am the exact same as you in that I need to have the lines memorized. And what has been a struggle for me is the story aspect of it. Like you were talking about what you really enjoy, from kind of growing up and stuff was the story and writing and the story building. Because I find when I can release the need to get every line 100% correct down to like the decimal point in a number that I'm reciting off, if I can just let that go a little wee bit and just concentrate more on the story of what my character's trying to do, that's when I can be a bit more free and when good work happens. But it's so hard. It's so hard.
I hear that a lot of people like, especially with auditions, experienced actors will say that's not important. What's important is that the story. And so I understand that you want to know what we're talking about, kind of the feeling, the emotions. I get all that. But my mind says, if I don't know what to talk about, what does it matter if in my mind I know where our story is, but I'm not saying anything about it? Like if I miss a whole sentence, to me, that's kind of important. So like, everyone's a little different, but I know for me, for me to feel comfortable, I need to be 100% off book. And then, I'll change it to say, yeah, instead of yes. Yes. And thank you. Or, I'll say, yeah, thanks, because that's me and that's me being natural. So I'll change something off book slightly. But I have to have it memorized, or I don't, like improv is hard for me, even though like I want to do more training with it. But when I do improv, especially like me as a police officer, I feel like I'm boring and I'm monotone. So I feel like I'm just like, you know what I mean? Like, hey, what's up? Like there's no emotion. There's not, and it's like kind of because of the roles or the writing, where it's not like I'm not a lead character yet, and I don't in anything really, but so I'm only, supportive role.
Mm-hmm.
So you're just driving the story forward, You're given what the other actors, you're taking what they give you. But yeah, so, just being a critical, critical of myself, like any actor would be. You look back and you're like, man, I was so monotone, or, oh, I felt like so boring, or, then I'm watching John Bernthal and I'm like, man, he is over the top. He's like strong choices. Maybe I should be like strong in my choices every time. But then other acting coaches and casting directors will tell you, do not be theatrical. Everything is right here. Don't move your face too much. They can see everything in your eyes. Yeah. But what's selling is when John Bernthal is looking left and looking right, and he's bobbing his head. And I'm like, what? So I'm going to try to do that next time. Just start bobbing my head, looking all over the place.
What I think is so key, and it's hard, is watching tapes of ourselves back. And I've realized that's really important for me, coming from a theater background. I say theater background. I mean, I was in a high school play once.
Yeah.
But it's still, I am a very performative, large person. And so doing the film and television where you're like, okay, everything needs to be here. And they're saying, do less, do less, do less. I was doing a self-tape this morning and my coach said, okay, you've got one tape done. We've got one take down. Let's just do one for fun where you're going to plant your feet. You're not going to move and you're not going to smile. Yeah. Just do it and just do it. And I watched it back and I was like, that's the one I'm sending to casting. It felt so monotone. It felt so blah and so bland and so, but it was just, it worked for stupid film.
I know what you're talking about. And what's great is the last several audition requests I've had, they requested multiple takes. One, a couple of them had asked for 2 takes and a couple of them asked for 3. And for me, that was cool because the first one, I was just like natural without thinking. Let me get through it a couple times. Usually the first couple times it's rough, but after like 3 takes of like your first version, now you're comfortable. Now let's do something different. I had a really good remote reader, and I use We Audition like 99% of the time now. So I had a remote reader tell me, try flirting with me in this scene. And I'm like, with these lines, there's no flirting. But I'm like, you know what? You should be able to bring just about any type of emotion with any script to give them like, hey, I did not even see that, and you never know what'll work. So, for the TV series that I was just pinned on, I'm not going to give too many details, but I'm looking at the stand, like the iPad stand, and I'm looking at the reader, and I'm looking at the reader up and down, but there's no reader there. It's just a skinny stand. So I'm like checking out the reader, right? And I'm like kind of like flirting with lines like that are very it has nothing to do with flirting. It's like I'm giving somebody giving somebody directions, but like I'm looking at them like this, and I'm like, that's just for fun, right? That's just another take. And then like if you can do 2 or 3, because that's the first time in the past year since I've been acting where I've been told to like give multiple takes. Usually you've got to pick your best one. And that's the thing, is don't show what you think they want to see, but like, what am I taping in? I'm taping for what I want to see. Like, so you kind of just figure, the script analysis, like, is this a horror film? Is this a comedy, period piece? What is this? So you kind of give them what you think they want, but having options is really cool. I like that.
Yeah. Well, and that's the joy of acting, right? Because we so rarely get the chance to actually get booked on something and go act. So if we get the opportunity to give people casting 3 different takes, like, you better believe I'm going to give you 3 different crazy options to be like, look at the range I have, casting director who's never seen me before. Look at what I can do. If none of them are right, at least I have range to make it right.
I've never flirted with somebody on screen. I've never flirted with anybody during an audition, but it's like I did it this time, and I'm like, oh, that's cool. Like I just found something in myself like that I didn't know I could do. So like check that off. Like flirtatious. Usually it's dramatic or instructor. What do you call it? But never like a flirtatious take in a scene. Yeah. But I gave it anyway.
That's awesome. Do you find are you able to pull, or is there anything you're pulling from your career in law enforcement that you're now bringing into your acting career that's been beneficial?
Yeah, definitely. And I've never really had like a triggering moment, but I can tell you, like, I know for a fact I was in a scene where it was like in a courtroom, but it was supposed to be like a town hall. And the town is upset with the chief of police. And I'm one of the cops in there, and I'm just supposed to be like watching the crowd, just standing there. And it's not triggering me, but obviously I have these real emotions where I've been in large crowds, in riots, disturbances, people yelling, pointing at police, really upset with police. And here I am doing what I now love, acting, but I'm in the same situation of acting like I'm in that situation again. So I remember saying something to another actor friend, like, man, this is kind of like why I got into acting, is to get away from this. But, it wasn't like, oh, I've had enough. Like, I can't do this. Like, no, I can do it. It's just not like, I'd rather do something else. Like, I don't know, something else, like another scene. But like, I did it, you know what I mean? And it's the cool thing is when they say cut, all the people like that are acting like they're mad are now like, they're normal human beings again. So it's like, man, I wish I had that in real life. I wish I could be in a riot situation and tell everyone, okay, cut, everyone, all right, go home. Thank you. You guys were great. But no, like, so like, so I'm drawing, and I have 24 years of experience, like, interacting with people, like, people in mental crisis, emotional crisis, relationship crisis. So I've seen a lot. And so I kind of know what, like, you study like, sociology and different arts like that, but you kind of know what like normal human reactions look like. And then they may not all match up. But I kind of like know what would be normal in a situation. And it's like how to carry myself, how to talk, how to interact with others. So I kind of, obviously, I use that and I bring it. And that's what, when they say actors that have real life experiences, because if you're a young actor and all you've done is modeling and acting, what else can you draw from? You should be well-rounded and have a lot of, have life experiences.
Yeah.
So it definitely has helped me.
Do you find, I'm going to draw a comparison to my other career in medicine.
Yeah.
Do you find it difficult to pull deep, heavy emotion up and show it? Because I'm imagining as a police officer, you have to be more kind of stoic in that emotional restraint. In medicine, we're taught to do that as well too. Do you find it difficult to now as an actor pull up some of these deep emotions that, as police, you kind of want to be a bit more poker face?
Well, that's a good question, but there's several different ways to look at it. Well, first of all, I haven't had too many scenes where I'm having to get that deep, I should say. So that's why I'm doing all this training, is try to, like, now that I'm in these roles, maybe I need actually to get the training to get more roles or more lines or better, deeper roles, I guess you could say. But I definitely have it. And here's like, there's some videos out there that talk about, like, if you're an actor and you want to play like you're drunk, you don't want to play too drunk, because a regular human that's drunk may want to hide that they're drunk. So you don't want to necessarily be, flying all over the place. You might want to look like you're trying to be in control. So like, that's kind of how I look at that. Like, so when I have like dramatic scenes, like, I can show, like, with my expressions different. I always want to show that I'm trying to protect myself, like you're saying, like a police officer. I have to have thick skin. So like, this is a heavy and deep thing. Like, I had a scene where there's a dead body at my feet. And so, like, maybe if you're not an experienced actor or you're obviously not a cop, you might overact, like, oh my gosh, and shake. And but like, I'm playing like a more grisly cop that's been on a while. And we see this all the time. And it's funny you said, because I asked the director, the producer, and it was a lot of improv, and we kind of had an idea of like, what kind of stuff you want me to talk about. And he says, well, what would you really talk about? What would you say? And I would say, honestly, and I'd say, well, if the scene is secure and there's no one around, right? There's no relatives around and it's a dead body, I said, people can be pretty crude, like
Mm-hmm.
you know what I mean? Like the Office of Medical Investigator,
Yep.
the different, so like, and we have to have these like dark sense of humor to protect ourselves. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to function with PTSD.
Mm-hmm.
So I tell them, honestly, we might just like kind of like crack jokes about like the house or the smell or like how fat the cat is. Or so like, oh, I use that. And he's like, great, use that. And I'm like, okay. So it's kind of weird that like I'm cracking jokes about a dead body, and I'm cracking jokes about how small in the trailer is that we're inside and how it stinks, so I'm kind of like cracking jokes, and that's kind of like, I'm definitely using that. Right. But that's my protection mechanism. I'm not like, oh my God, like I see dead bodies a lot. So I'm trying to show that in film, and it could come off, kind of, we call it crude, like, oh, so insensitive, but people have to understand, like, the military, but you would never do that in front of family. You would never do that. That's why cameras, change kind of aspects and stuff, because you can't say what you would normally feel and say and stuff. But yeah, so like I kind of just bring the 100% authenticity, and then just like I just act like this is real. So
yeah,
and they love that. Is the feedback I'm getting. But my fear is if it's not like a crazy scene where there's like death at my feet, if it's just me in the office, like I kind of feel like I'm too monotone and it's like too boring. You know what I mean? So it's like I want to have those like really deep, crime scenes, interactions with victims and suspects and stuff like that, instead of just like office talk.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So.
Well, and that's where I think the acting coaching, at least for me, has been so helpful, because they will teach you, at least in my experience, to, regardless of what scene you're in, pull from your life experience. Yeah. Because that's like you're saying, that's where, like, regardless, like, for example, I did a self-tape this morning where I was playing a serial killer. I'm never going to be a serial killer, but like, they're like, where can you pull from like your medical career, your life, or whatever, that you can use in this character and make that authentic, real scene come to life. And I think, the gallows humor you talk about, like, that's what they want. And it's the same with like the performative aspect of being a police officer on camera, right? You are comfortable with where your belt is, where your gun is, where your handcuffs are. You know how to move because you do this every day. You don't need to be trained because you're already trained. Those actions, I think that's exact same with the wordage of it, right? Like, what would it be? How would this be real? And you do this every day. I think when there are such defined like TV tropes, doctor, cop, lawyer. Yeah. That's where I think we have a huge advantage, having trained as one of those. Yeah, definitely. Because we have the mannerisms down to be the expert already. Yeah. Because we already are.
No, I totally agree. And, I had another role too. So I have no prior military, but they say police work is like paramilitary, even though we've gotten away from that definition now isn't even nice. But I played a U.S. Army general in a period piece for World War II. And so I'm thinking like, this is the first time I ever said, like, what do I do with my hands? Yeah. Like in a scene, right? This is like my, what do I do with my hands moment. Yeah. So like I said, I'm a U.S. Army general, and I'm in the scene talking to subordinates, and I'm powerful and I'm loud and I'm angry. And I'm like, okay, I can get all this, but I'm like, what should I be doing? And then, so I'm thinking to myself, and I'll tell you, I don't know if I did this on my own first and then noticed it in film afterwards, or if I subconsciously remember seeing it, but like Pearl Harbor with like Alec Baldwin playing Doolittle. Mm-hmm. And there's so many other, I can't think of their names right now, but there's so many other like World War II period pieces with actors, and they play generals. And I went back and looked at Woody Harrelson in an Apple TV series or movie played like a U.S. Army general. And you know what? He used the same body language that I used. Mm. And I didn't see his until after I did my role. So what I'm explaining is that like things like crossing your arms across your chest is more of like I'm cut off from you, or you need to impress me, or you need to, I don't know if I'm going to listen to what you're telling me, and that's like a powerful, gesture movement. And then hands on your hips. You got your hands on your hips or your gun belt. that's another like power position. So I use those two. And then of course we did so many takes. I had to remember at what point did I have my arms folded versus hands on my hips. But I go back and watch these other movies now and I'm like, apparently I'm not the only one. There's other actors that understand, like Alec Baldwin and Woody Harrelson are doing the same movements that I'm doing. And so like I said, I know I saw Woody Harrelson afterwards. I'm not sure if I remember how Doolittle, but like there's a scene where it's blocked where I'm reading a map with my back to the the subordinates behind me. So that's like a power thing. Like they're starting to talk with my back to them. Now I turn around to address them. But I'm learning that so I was never in the military, but like I'm kind of thinking like, okay, I'm a boss. I mean, and that's why I tell people I really like playing like uniform. It could be a lab technician, a doctor, an attorney, wearing a robe as a judge. But like if I have a little bit of a costume, it helps me, bring that out. And it's a little bit easier. I don't know if it's like cheating as an actor, but, I definitely use that. Like, how would I be as a general? And like all the years I've ever seen real generals behave, and then how do you see them behave on camera, to make it. And my first take on it was to be a little bit louder and angry and talking down to somebody. And I said, no, that's a little bit too theatrical. Cause this one casting agent told me, tone it down a little bit. Or to be a little bit more reserved. But then like the director on this project says, no, we want that, bring it up. Yeah. Be louder, be very angry. And I was like, all right, that was actually my first take on it. So my first, they say stay with your first gut instinct. And that usually is right. But for that one, I was excited to do.
Do you have any advice for anyone looking to change careers and start pursuing acting like you have?
I do. I would say, and I don't mean this to be cruel, but like, don't quit your day job. So like, you got to, I don't understand when people say like, they're just going to move to LA and become an actress. Like, I think you need to, and then what they end up doing is bussing, waiting tables and stuff. So have a career, get a career, or have a job, try to have one where you have some flexibility, then pursue your dreams like I'm doing whenever you can. Take every step you can do. And then if you're towards the tail end of your career, it's easy. Like if you're collecting a retirement check, if you're financially stable, everyone's different. And then, I have a, very specific path, and you have a path. Mine is, from that police background. So I can sit there and tell another cop or, somebody in the military or out of the military, how best I think they could get into the industry. It'd be different for other people, but I would say, don't just up and quit your job and say, okay, because then now I hear what people have is the desperation auditions, where like I have to book in there, and then I have friends that are looking at like low paying background roles, which I think are beneath them. But who am I to judge if they need the money? I definitely don't need any more background roles. I'm not doing any more background, actually. But like, it's not a money issue for me. So like, I have no desperation. For me, it's the excitement, it's the learning, it's the having this new hobby. And some full-time actors might resent that, or and say, oh, you can't go halfway into this, and you have to be all in. Like, I get it, you got to be all in to be as successful as you can be, but nobody's telling me how many auditions I have to do versus what I want to do. But yeah, don't quit your day job, but you can be successful. You got to do a lot of work. And some of the background actors that I've worked with in the past, they have different set of priorities in life, as far as like what jobs they have, their availability. I mean, I tried to get a background actor a line, or a role in several lines in a TV series that I'm filming, and he basically, he thanked me, but then he said, well, I hope they're filming on weekends because I'm only available on weekends. And I said, I can't believe I just recommended this guy. And people complain that they don't get speaking roles, but now he's like, you have to basically say you're available and then try to make yourself available, really. And sometimes you double book, sometimes, like I'm pinned right now for a whole month on hold. I'm being asked to be on hold for a pin. So they say, like, don't change things if you're just pinned, like pegged or whatever you call it. But like, I don't want to I'm looking at like 3 different projects now in a couple months. So I don't know if I want to take on any more until I find out what's going on with some of them.
Mm-hmm.
So like, there's no desperation for me. It's exciting for me to not know what's the next project. I know what I'm currently working on, but it's exciting, not knowing what's coming around the corner.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm only in that position because of the financial situation and job.
Yeah. And I think, well, one, I hate the starving artist mentality. I think that's such garbage, right? That you have to suffer and like be poor and eat ramen noodles. That's how you become a true actor. No,
it's so cliche.
It's so right. It doesn't make any sense. I'm sorry. What was I going to say? But yeah, the desperation piece, I think, is so key. And being comfortable where you are financially, I think I can't really express how important that is, even though it's not the romantic thing people want to hear about artistry. But you're like, sorry, that's just the facts of life, right? It's just, you have to. And I think that is where, again, the authenticity can come from when you're acting. If you're not desperate, being like, I need this role to pay my rent. Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But I tell you what, I have a friend, he's on We Own the City, and I'm in We Own the City for HBO episode 1 and 5. And he plays Ed Barber, John Bernthal's character's field training officer in episode 2. He has so many scenes, lots of dialogue, and he steals every scene from John. And he's a local actor from Washington, D.C. He's only been acting a year longer than me. So he's only been acting for 2 years, almost all these independent, small projects. And he told me the grind that he went through for his prior acting project in Virginia, basically sleeping and living out of his car. And I tell people I was grinding because I was working midnight shift patrol as a police officer on midnight shift, driving home, switching cars, driving to Richmond to film, staying awake, filming, driving back, trying to find some time to take a nap, all while having a family and everything. So I tell people I was grinding. He was grinding because he was living out of his car. So when he got cast for this role as the FTO, field training officer, he said he pulled over and cried. Now, when I got cast as my role, I was ecstatic and I couldn't believe it. Like, oh my gosh, the first audition I've ever done on, live, I booked a role. Like, this is insane. This is awesome. But I don't know if I cried. I was just so excited. But that tells you, like, I have a little bit of a struggle and grind, but there's other people we all know. And that's the story that we all love to hear, how John Straczynski almost went home to live with his mother before he booked the Office. Mm-hmm. And the guy that played was it Star-Lord in Guardians of the Galaxy? I forget his name.
Chris Pratt.
Chris Pratt was homeless, living in a van in Hawaii, I believe, or something like that. So we've all heard that, but many of the actors will tell you, the only actors that haven't made it yet are the ones that are that have given up. And if you're still working, then there's obviously, it's like you can't win the lottery if you don't play.
Yeah.
You can't make it in acting if you've given up, basically. Mm-hmm. So when you talk about the grind, I've seen it, and that's a great story. He did a phenomenal job, and he's just a local actor in the Mid-Atlantic region. And I don't know if he became SAG just with that role or not, but there's a lot of similar stories, in the market that I'm in outside of Washington, D.C. and Baltimore, Virginia area.
Mm-hmm. I think that I was just remembering what kind of triggered in my head with what you were saying just before I asked that question. You were excited about the you're excited about what is next, right? Yeah, the unknown, the unpredictability, which I think the unpredictability of this business is a huge reason for the atrophy rate, for people to leave, right? Because they don't know where their next paycheck's coming from. They don't know where the next job is coming from. But I love that mindset, right? Like if we can keep that excited, whatever next audition can be, like the big one kind of thing, or whatever keeps you excited about the next day. I think keeping that excitement up about the unpredictability of this business, which will always be there, right? That's a given. But if we can keep that mindset of excitement, I think that's so key. So key. I like that.
Yeah, I tell people like right now, I mean, I only have one check that I'm waiting on, and it's not that I really, really need it. And I'm forcing myself to work less overtime at work. And I've tracked all my overtime over the years, and I'm purposefully doing that so I can spend more time with family, less stress, more time working out, eating healthy, getting more sleep, and then just even more focusing on the acting, the training that I need to get in, and stuff like that. But definitely is the I'm excited about my health and fitness. I'm excited that I lost 35 pounds while filming Walking Dead. In about 12 to 18 month period, I lost 45 pounds. And that's by eating healthy on set, by wearing a very tight, custom made, futuristic soldier suit. And that, that's what I find exciting is the next project around the corner, and just auditioning. And I've told people, like, because the unemployment rate, and then you got to tell yourself, like, these tricks, like just getting an audition is a win. Mm-hmm. And then getting an audition request is awesome. And getting callbacks is awesome. And being pinned and availability checks, all these are wins for actors. But you could also look at it the other way. Like you can do all this, but if you're not booking the roles, then they're not wins. But, that's the way I look at it. If they tell you, like, you should audition and just forget about it, and then just you're on to the next thing. And, like, really, that's the only way to really look at it is, sometimes I'll get a call back on something I forgot I put in for. I'm like, oh, I'm still in the running for that. Cool. Cause I assumed I wasn't going to get it, or, but like even like modeling and commercial work, like I'll get callbacks that I totally forgot I put in for. Now, what I got to get good at is like booking out, literally is putting in my calendar, like, hey, I may be in the state of Ohio for these 2 days. So I got to write it in there in case I do get it. instead of assuming, like, that I will or I won't. I gotta book out dates because I may get these. So I don't know.
Do you have any memorable on-set stories from some of your shows that you've done?
I've had, I'll tell you, The Walking Dead World Beyond. I mean, every show, every movie I've done, we've had different memories, but what's crazy is like The Walking Dead World Beyond, like I told you, like, I'm working with the military advisor, Kevin Kent, former Navy SEAL. And so, like, he's helping really block scenes, and he's having us march and do weapon movements different ways. And we end up, like, not using most of this. Like, I went through 80 hours of CRM soldier training. It's like a mini, I don't want to say Navy SEAL boot camp or whatever, but it's about movements and room clearing and tactical stuff, and getting us 12 soldiers from all walks of life on the same page with the same commands. But, like, the memories on set working with those guys will last a lifetime. So it's really my first union job. But all the behind the scenes thing is just great, because like just sheer boredom, and you're just hanging out waiting for your name to get called or not called. But standing next to, like, a real badass, a Navy SEAL who's been there and done that. And he's been on all these big projects like Transformers and, like, all the movies with Mark Wahlberg and Chris Helmsworth, all these big movies where he's a military advisor. And then, we got these other actors, and it's like Walking Dead can kind of roll like a soap opera. So it's kind of like just the human interaction, the drama, the dialogue, the plot of what's going on next. And all of that is like, you're a background actor. You have no idea what's going on. You have you don't even know what episode this is. You don't know the plot line. Sometimes they give you disinformation because they think you're going to tell, like, oh, who dies at the end or whatever. But, like, so my memories really are just like working with, Kevin, the Navy SEAL, and other CRM soldiers, and then just kind of like watching how they're blocking stuff. And they bring in these, these stunt guys, and, like, I was on my SWAT team, and I was a sniper on my SWAT team, but they would bring in like a stuntman from, like, LA just to lay behind a sniper rifle. And I'm like, do they not know, like, that I was a real sniper? Like, they could probably pay me the same rate as a background actor, but then just have me featured behind a rifle. So, like, so I see these scenes now, like, in different episodes where I'm like, hey, I know I'm right off camera. Like, I'm in the scene, but I'm off camera. You can't even see me. Or another scene, like, they're in a house, and, like, And like, I know that I'm actually on the other side of the wall. Like I'm in frame, but behind a wall. Like, so you don't even know that I'm there. And I'm just sitting there just rolling my eyes. You know, another actor's like hungry, thinking like, hey, let's sneak away to Crafty and get pizza. And then like, you're like, man, I really want to get in the scene. But yeah, there was one time where I just looked at the stunt coordinator and he was kind of in charge of, does he use stuntmen or does he use us? And I would look at him like, and this is late at night. And I would just look at him this one time and I just said, you guys aren't going to use me tonight, are you? And he looked at me, he's like, probably not. And I was like, okay. So I turned around and walked out and I'm like, I'm taking off all my stuff. And I'm like, hey, where's Crafty at? You know, but I had friends that walked off set. I had like at least 2 friends that are like fed up. They're like, they're not going to use us. And they were so angry. But I was, you know, I was a series regular. So like I was there the whole summer. And out of the whole summer, every day that I filmed, there was only, I think, 3 specific dates that I wasn't used. So I was used almost all the time.
Awesome.
But, you know, the life of a background actor is like whether or not you're in frame and camera or how much, you know, and you think just because you filmed one scene all day long, you're going to be featured. And then they cut it down and cut it down and cut it down. And then they don't use like the most, you know, complimentary angle or whatever.
Yeah.
But, you know, that's tough. And then you go back through all your footage and you're like, well, what's, you know, am I clearly seen in any of these?
Yeah, I'm just this blur in the background. Okay.
But that's like kind of like, that's the life of background. Like you're literally background. But we own the city, they did feature, there's like a camera trick where you can kind of focus in on a background actor. And then now like you can change the camera angle or you have the main actors walk in. And I kind of like that because what the camera is showing you is people, like real people that are important. Before like you see the normal actors, like these shows and movies where they just track the main actor the whole time. Like I get that, but like every once in a while, just focus, you know, on the featured background. Yeah. And I mean, I say that because of being background, but I have a friend who's a cop and I got him on the show. He's never done any acting before. And he showed up and they got him because he was a cop. And sure enough, he's clearly in focus on a shot in the TV show. And I kind of told him, I told others, I was like, that really doesn't happen too often where you're a featured background in focus and it's held, you know, you're centered in frame and it's held. That doesn't happen very often. But that's a cool story to tell about him and just the experience I had on Walking Dead.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any final words of wisdom?
You know, kind of, we talked about it before, but, cliche, but like never give up, do all you can. But you gotta do your work. You're gonna get out of it what you put into it. And you can teach yourself a lot off of YouTube by listening to others. You can do a lot of research. You can read books, audiobooks, you can watch videos, take little bits of information from everyone, but do as much as you can to promote your career or whatever goal you want. But like I said, I'm sitting around with a bunch of background actors and we all are jealous that Rick Grimes is getting paid, you know, millions and millions of dollars for an episode or for a minute of filming. And then we're not getting paid peanuts and we're not being in credits. So like, instead of complaining, what can you do to improve, you know, to get where you want to go? Right. So you take some type of action. So there's so many things actors can do. And some actors don't even do all these or do them well. Like we know that, like the self-promotion, but like the working on your resume, the headshots, the IMDb, there's literally something you can do every day. But like a lot of background actors or a lot of new actors, and they may just not know, or they may not know, or they may not have the funds. I mean, $30 a month may be too much for somebody to do some subscription. You know what I mean? But if you don't know what casting databases and websites you should be on, then you start asking, and then you pick up one, and then you ask someone else, and now you've heard of a second one. So like just listening, talking to other, it's very important. Like networking is very important. Like I've gotten roles myself from networking, and I've given a lot of people roles by me networking, you know, to them. And that's something people don't understand too, or that is kind of like, some people think it's a negative thing. Like, oh, it's who you know, it's who you know. But like, it's kind of like natural. Like I know you, and if there's something filming in your area, and I would like know like, oh, you'd be perfect for this,
Mm-hmm.
you know. So you do that for your friends, and then that's not a competition, because if they're looking for a female doctor, nurse, I know I'm not a threat to you, or I'm definitely not going to get it, or I've already have my role in the film, in the show.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm going to try to help the production by getting them somebody that's really experienced, that's good, and so like the networking. So a lot of people don't network. Either they don't do the social media, or they don't, you know, they everything is so competitive. Like I don't want to tell you any of my secrets because you might steal it. But like I'm not like that. I want to share like my success, and I want to learn from others. And it's nice when you can network, and everyone wants a hand up, and people I think up there realize that. But I also saw some important videos where the people that are higher up, I guess the rung, if you want to say, in the acting world, they want to know that people below them are doing what they can. So I think John Bernthal even touched on it once, basically said that don't come to me asking me who my agent is. Don't come to me saying, hey, can you introduce me to your producer? Don't do that. Come to me and ask me, what else can I do as an actor? What else kind of training can I get that, you know, and I'm going to tell you, have you done everything you can? Have you had your headshots done? Have you done any acting classes? Well, no, but people say I have a pretty face. So like maybe you can just remember me for your next movie. Like, so the big actors, they're not going to want to hear that. So they want to know that you're really putting in the work. So there's no, you know, there's different, I wouldn't say shortcuts, there's different routes, but that I learned recently, like show everyone else around you that you're doing what you can do. And then, you know, maybe you'll get those, you know, those not handouts, but you know, a helping hand, I guess, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, and coming back to your thing about, you know, networking. Yeah, I agree. It definitely has a bit of a negative kind of connotation because people think of it as being like brown nosing. Right. But I think I agree. I think I would want to work with people that I know, because I do that in medicine all the time. Like I pick who I work with in the operating room because I know that they're really nice, fun people, talented. We're going to get the job done and we're going to have a good time doing it. So of course I'm going to pick those people that I've worked with before. So it's just human nature. And so, be nice.
There's different ways to look at it. Yeah. For the networking, because I hear that there's actually like networking, like, seminars and conferences. And to me, that's kind of like, okay, so there's gonna be 300 people all there being taught and trained how to network like that.
Great.
That's, to me, that's not what I'm looking for.
No.
I'm talking about like, I see your podcast, I friend request you. And I tell people just accept friend requests, because everyone's like, oh, you know, I like to have a personal life. And, you know, I keep professional and personal separate. Like you can, but then how are people going to get to know you? If they like you, if they want to refer you. So like accept friend requests from strangers. If it, you know, if it doesn't work out, you can remove them. But like, you know, don't, you know, reach out to somebody, you know, send them a message and say like, hey, I see you're friends with so-and-so. Like, you know, somebody just randomly messaged me yesterday. He asked a question on an actor's website or Facebook group. I answered it. So then he sent me a private message, friend requested me. And I said, sure. And I accepted, and we just talked a little bit, but it's, you know, you might be able to help them out. They might be able to help you out. And it's one more, oh, you worked with so-and-so. Oh, that's awesome. So that's one more connection I just made just by, you know, responding to a question and him friend requesting me. So like networking like that, just becoming friends with people, not, you know, not trying to go to these seminars where I need to get in the room with this casting director from my region. Like I need her to notice me. Like, I don't like, they notice you that you're trying too hard is what they notice.
Yeah. That's
versus, you know what I mean? So like, I look at it not as a negative thing, but, I'm not approaching it like that brown nose technique. And, you know, and then that's just vicious too, because people are stepping on each other, you know, and make the other person look bad so you can look good. And I don't want any part of that. But networking like in a good way with local actors. And it's great. Like I'm friends with these actors now, you know, and some of them are competition. I mean, there's several of them actually that are competition for me. So I may not share like the big audition I have coming, because I may not want them to know about it and put in for it. But I'll tell you, as soon as I'm done, then I can ask them after the deadline, hey, did you put in for that role? And if they did, hey, cool, good luck. Yeah, I put in for it too. Or if they didn't because they missed it, like, oh, okay, because we all see the same openings and stuff.
Yeah.
Like I'll never promote like a role that I'm putting in for. I'll ask them afterwards. But I know basically who I'm competing against for what roles. But yeah, we're, and then some of them are friendly and some of them aren't as friendly. And it's like, it's a shame. Cause like some of that, is limited, the communication. Like I had asked this one person 3 times directly who his photographer was. And I was like, I didn't know, like, is that a secret? Like you're not allowed to say who your photographer is. So like, he finally told me, I'm like, cool. I'm like, it's so weird. Like I get it with agents, like, oh, who's your agent? Like, please don't call my agent. We're both white males, 30-year-old white males, whatever. But like like anyone that's different, totally different, then I would, tell them who my agents are, but you got to do all the work. I can't, I'm not in a position where I can recommend people to talent agencies. I'm in a position to recommend people for low budget, independent roles. So I could refer you to like for this little like project we're doing, but I can't call a talent agent and say, you need to sign this person.
Yeah.
So I think it's a little bit different. I don't know.
One last question that I got to ask. Do you watch cop shows and do they drive you insane?
Well, it's funny at different points in my career. The cop show I watch is HBO We Own the City.
Oh, yes.
Because I'm in it. We got the last or the season finales on tonight. But I tell you, I became a cop because I watched Cops live on TV. Is one of the reasons why I became a cop, or specifically why I went to Albuquerque, New Mexico, just watching them. So we used to watch that. We watched that in the academy. We'd watch that, when you're a rookie. But as you get more years on, you kind of don't want to come home to watch that stuff. And it's funny because you would come home, you want to relax and unwind, but other people in the house might find it exciting to watch cop stuff. And you're just rolling your eyes. You're like I went through all that for like 10 hours and now I have to see this on TV. But I've definitely watched like, I would say like the good cop shows or whatever, but like The Wire, Homicide is one of my favorites. There's so many different ones, even like Breaking Bad's not a cop show, but different shows I've definitely can watch. But like, well, I won't watch any of the live TV shows anymore, like the Cops Live, or there's different variations of it. Like, because to me, I just don't want to me, that's boring. It's what I did at work. So like, I don't want to see Cops live. I would rather watch like a dramatic, an acted show with like a cool plot and good, like Tom Selleck, as a chief of police, or like really good actors that I admire. I want to watch them. Yeah. Versus like the live action real cop shows.
Thank you everyone for tuning in, and thank you, Victor, for being my guest this week. Thank you for being my inaugural, very first ever police officer turned actor. But like I said in the beginning, you are not the last. You are in good company, my friend. I hope everyone will tune in next week for another episode of Second Act Actors. Bye! Second Act Actors is produced and edited by me, Janet McMorty. Theme music by Guillaume. Additional sound editing by David Studio. Additional video editing by Jackie Wadoer. Show notes written by Sarah Hopkinson. I record using Riverside FM. If you're interested in developing an interview-based webcast like mine, I highly recommend this platform. Shoot me an email and I'll direct you to the wonderful folks there. If you or someone you know is interested in being a guest, email me at secondactactors@gmail.com. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with your friends. My love language is words of affirmation, so compliments, constructive criticism, and feedback are always welcome and encouraged. Negative Nancys, Judgy McJudgersons, or Debbie Downers, unless you're Rachel Dratch, regarding me or my guests are not welcome. It takes serious courage to share your story with the world, so if you're tempted to negatively comment about someone else's story, please ask your therapist why you're such a garbage person. Save the drama for the stage. On that happy note, I hope you'll tune in next week for another episode of Second Act Actors. Bye!